Hey guys, today we're going to do a lot of small fixes. We're going to fix the convoy formation that has been broken in the last couple of episodes. We're also going to improve the crosshairs icon. And when selecting group members, we're going to display an order help box. We're also going to add a move order icon when issuing the move order. And if we cancel the move order using escape, this will no longer trigger the pause menu. And we're also going to add a small feature where as soon as you issue an order, for example, the hold order, then the selected group members are deselected. These small changes will make our project a bit more polished and a bit more streamlined for the player. In this video, I'm going to show you how to draw these icons in Corel Draw. So it's a mix of a programming and art tutorial. You have timestamps below. So if you want to skip the art parts, you can. Okay, let's do it. Before we start, I have to let you know that I moved the project to Unity 6, mainly because of the improvements on the scene view. For example, here we have a direct access to the grid size without having to open the menu, change the grid size, and then close it again, which makes it very easy for level design. So you can quickly set the grid size, move objects around, and we also have more compact buttons here for all sorts of things. And we have ProBuilder integrated in the menus here. We no longer need to open the huge ProBuilder menu, but some things have been deprecated. So in NPC Ragdoll, here we are using rigidbody.velocity, and it says that velocity is obsolete. We have to use linear velocity instead. So we're going to change it. So if you don't change it, Unity will keep nagging us about updating the API. Okay. So this is about all the changes that we need to make. And also I had to allow Unity to upgrade all the materials because we were using an older version of URP, and that's about it. In the previous episodes, we introduced an interface for groups and orders, and we had to make some changes to the formation class. So without being aware of it, I broke the column formation. So right now my group is in the column formation, and when I move, they are all trying to follow me. So the proper behavior is that each member will follow the member in front of them, not all following the leader at once. So we're going to fix this. So in the C# project, let's go to scripts, groups and formations, and then to formation. So in the formation script, we split the method getPosition into two methods. This is a, let's say, more basic method with more basic parameters. And then we have this one with NPC and group. So most formations will have to override this one, getPosition. However, for the convoy formation, it makes more sense to override this one. So we're going to make it a virtual method, and let's go to the convoy formation and let's override the getPosition, which takes the NPC and the group. So I'm going back to the formation script. I'm just going to copy this code and have it here in the convoy formation. So we're going to get the leader index, which is member index -1, and we're going to get the leader, which is the member at leader index. As for the leader position and leader direction, we're going to use the leader object here. Then we're going to call getPosition, and this will actually be this method. So in this method, we don't need a member index. So by doing this, we maintain the possibility of using the getPosition method with all these parameters. So this can be useful as we did before to display the gizmos, although we ended up not using it except for the line formation, but it's always useful to have a basic method like this. And then here we have the getPosition where we take the NPC and the group. And in this case, when we have an NPC and the group, we'll use this method. So we can argue that perhaps the convoy formation is not even considered as a formation, because it's mainly a lack of formation, but our current changes should make it work. Here in getPosition, I seem to have made a mistake because getFollowerIndex will return the follower index rather than the member index. And if you remember, follower index is member index -1. So the follower index is indeed the index of the member in front of the current follower in the formation. So we just have to say group members at follower index, and that would be the leader. Okay, so now it's working. So the members of my group are moving in a convoy formation, following the member in front of them. When given a move order, it would be great if we could hide the crosshairs and instead display an icon like in Arma. So in Arma, when given a move order, the crosshairs is hidden, and instead the game displays an icon like this. So I'm in Corel Draw. I'm in the same file where I create the thumbnails of the videos. So we're going to create an icon like this. I'm going to go here, click on the ellipse tool to add a circle. I'm going to hold Control to create a circle. Let's give it a size of 500 by 500 using the inspector up here. So I'm going to double click on this pen icon and I'm going to give it some thickness. Let's give it 10, for example. And for the color, I'm going to choose white. I'm going to set the position of the outline to inside outline and click OK. Then let's add a chevron like in Arma. But first, let's remove the edges. So let's remove the diagonal edges on the circle. So I'm going to click on the rectangle tool and I'm going to create a rectangle like this, then align it with the circle. So I'm going to click on the rectangle, then shift click on the circle, then go to the align Docker. So if you're using Adobe Illustrator, you have tools like this. In Corel Draw, you go to Window, Dockers, and then Align and Distribute. And here you can align two objects together. So here I've aligned the rectangle with the circle. I'm going to also align it vertically. So I'm going to click somewhere and make sure that the duplicate distance is set at 0. So when I click on an object and click on Ctrl D, it duplicates the object in place. Then I'm going to click again to display the rotation tools, and I'm going to rotate while holding Control to snap the angle. So with this, I'm going to select this rectangle and this one and click again to be able to rotate them. Then I'm going to rotate them while holding Control, then click again. Perhaps we can make them smaller, something like this. So I'm going to click on my circle and right click, convert to curves. Then I'm going to click on this rectangle, shift click on the other rectangle and go up here to weld. So now we have a single object. So I'm going to click on my circle, then go to object and convert outline to object. So now instead of an outline, we have an object. And I'm going to click on the welded rectangles and then shift click on my circle and then go here to back minus front. Okay, now let's create a chevron. I'm going to click here and hold and select the polygon tool. I'm going to select 3 edges up here. Then I'm going to click and drag to create my rectangle. Something like this will do. I'm going to right click, convert to curves, then go to the shape tool and select the top edge here. Then I'm going to click on break curve. Now I can take these edges apart and just select them and delete. Okay, back to the pick tool. Now let's give this some thickness. I'm going to double click on the pen tool here, then choose a white color and set the width to 10 pixels. As for the line caps, I'm going to choose a round cap, then hit OK. Then we need to align this chevron with the icon. So I'm going to click on the chevron, then shift click on the circle and go to my align and distribute Docker and align horizontally, then align vertically. So we need the chevron to be at the center of the circle. So I'm going to move it up a little bit. Okay, something like this will do. Yeah, perhaps on the chevron, I can also set the corners to round corners, perhaps. Yeah, this looks better. Perhaps let's make it smaller. So I'm going to select it. Then before clicking on one of the corners, I'm going to hit Shift. Yeah, perhaps this size will look better. Okay, so I'm going to click on my chevron, then shift click on the circle, then Control G to group them together. Okay, now let's compare this icon with the icon on Arma. Yeah, so they look similar. It's a great icon that we're going to just blatantly steal. Okay, so the last step is to export this image to Unity by going to File, Export. So I'm going to save it in Content, UI, Sprites. Let's call it Move Order Icon. Okay, back to the Unity editor. So this is our Move Order icon. I'm going to set the texture type to Sprite 2D, the Sprite mode to Single, the Mesh type to Full Rect. So the pivot will keep it at the center. We will not generate the physics shape. We'll choose the alpha source as the input texture alpha. And let's set the max size to 512 and hit apply. So I had to re-export the icon from Corel Draw because I forgot to export with transparency. Okay, and now we have our icon. Let's go to UI Manager, Canvas, HUD. Here we have our crosshairs. Let's add another image. So I'm going to right click on HUD, then UI, then image, and let's call it Move Order Icon. For the source image, let's give it our Move Order Icon. Let's click on Set Native Size. We don't need this to be a raycast target. Okay, so let's resize it. So perhaps a size of 200 by 200 will do better. Okay, now let's go to our UI Manager script. Let's click on Edit Script. Okay, so in the fields, we have a crosshairs here. So I'm going to group these elements under HUD. Let's organize this a little bit. Let's add a reference to our Move Order icon. In the Start method, we're deactivating the crosshairs. Let's do the same for the Move Order icon. And in the Update method, what we're doing right now is dependent on whether the player's character is aiming or not, then we are displaying the crosshairs. So let's add a condition. If player mode is Move Order, then we're going to enable the Move Order icon and disable or deactivate the crosshairs. And we're going to add the rest of the if statements in an else if. So else if the player character is aiming. So we're going to deactivate the Move Order icon for the rest of the cases. Okay, now let's go back to the editor and we're going to assign the Move Order icon here on the UI Manager. Okay, so this is it. I'm going to drag it to the Move Order icon field. Now let's run the game. Okay, so I have my group. I'm going to select everyone, then hit 2. For the move order, and as you can see, we have the move order icon visible on the UI. So I'm going to press E to move the characters, and then as soon as I do that, so we are going out of the move order mode, so the crosshairs is visible again. So this works. Now we've added a nice move order icon like they do in Arma. However, a flat icon like this will not exactly work in all cases. So let's give it a bit of a shadow. So I'm back in Corel Draw. To give an object a little bit of a shadow, let's go to Shadow Tool and I'm going to choose a preset here. I'm going to choose Small Glow and I'm going to change the color here. Let's set it to black and we can play with these values. So I'm going to change the feathering to 5. So this makes the shadow closer to the original shape. To test this, let's drag it over the Arma screenshot. If this is too much, we can reduce the opacity of the shadow. So we have an opacity here. Let's set it to 50. Yeah. So a value of 50 or like 60. Yeah, this looks way better. So the shadow will make the icon pop no matter which environment you're in. So if you are in a very dark environment, of course, the icon will pop because it's white. But if you are in a very bright environment, this little shadow will help it stay visible. So we're going to export this again. So I'm just going to override the image and there's no need to do anything in Unity. So in Corel Draw, apparently we cannot export the shadows unless you go to bitmap, then convert to bitmap. And now we can export this object. So back in Unity, the sprite will be updated and we don't have to do anything else. So now we have an icon with a shadow. Okay, so this is how the icon looks in Unity. So you can notice that against very bright backgrounds. So here I'm literally looking at the sun. Thanks to the shadows, The icon is still visible no matter what. Okay, let's make a better crosshairs. So we're going to do the same thing that we did for the move order icon. So I'm just going to create one part of the crosshairs and we're going to use it in Unity. So I'm going to create a rectangle using the rectangle tool, and I'm going to click here to give it a white fill and right click here to remove the outline. So let's go to shape tool and I'm just going to drag on one of the corners, and this will enable me to make the shape more round. Let's perhaps make it smaller horizontally, something like this, okay? And perhaps make it smaller vertically as well. So if we have this and we duplicate it a bunch of times, then this is how it will look in Unity. So I'm going to rotate it. So in Unity, it will look like this. Okay, so let's remove the other parts and let's give it some shadow like we did for the other icon. So I'm going to add a small glow. Okay, let's choose a color. Let's choose black. Let's keep the feathering at 20 and change the opacity of the shadow. Let's choose an opacity of 60. And what I want to do is perhaps add some transparency to it. So let's go to the transparency tool and let's choose fountain transparency. So I'm going to drag this gizmo, and by pressing Ctrl, I can snap the angles to 15 degrees. So I'm going to drag this gizmo down a bit. So I just want some transparency at the tip of the object. Let's see how it will look in game. So I'm going to duplicate this. So I'm going to select all. So this will select both the curve and the drop shadow. And I'm going to press Ctrl D. So this is duplicated. And I'm going to select this one and go to bitmap, convert to bitmap. Okay, then I'm going to export, Control E. So we are still in the sprites folder in our Unity project. I'm going to call this crosshairs part and I'm going to export. Let's make sure transparency is selected and hit OK. So back in Unity, I'm going to change the texture type to sprite, sprite mode to single, no need to generate the physics shape, mesh type to full rect. As for the max size, I'm going to choose 128, then hit apply. So let's go to our canvas. HUD, then crosshairs. I'm going to replace these images with our crosshairs part. So let's go to source image and set it to our crosshairs part. I'm going to do the same for the other images. Some images need to be rotated. So this one is good. This one needs to be rotated by 90 degrees. And this one needs to be rotated by 180 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to select all of these images and perhaps keep the color to the white color. Let's also change the opacity of the images. Let's choose an alpha value of 65 and let's reduce the width of the images, and I'm going to also reduce the height and perhaps bring them closer. Okay, so this looks way better. Okay, now let's work on a small fix. So when I have a move order, when I want to cancel it by pressing escape, this brings up the pause menu. Let's prevent this from happening. So we are in the UI manager script. When we want to toggle the pause menu, let's check if the player is in the move order mode first. So we're going to change the on pause button press method. So we're only going to set pause mode to true when we're not in pause mode and the player's mode is the normal mode. Otherwise, if pause mode is true, we will set pause mode to false. So this will prevent the canceling of the move order from triggering the pause menu. So I did a test just now and this doesn't work because right before on pause button is pressed, the player's mode changes to normal. So I'm going to move this code to the player controller. So I'm going to move this method to the player controller. Let's go to third person controller, then player controller, or rather let's go to player order controller. Let's go to the on cancel method. I'm just going to temporarily copy this method here. Let's work on the on cancel. Let's just do if input is not pressed, then return. So if player mode is move order, we'll do this. Otherwise, we'll call on pause button pressed on the UI manager, and we're going to keep the on pause button pressed on the UI manager, except on the UI manager, in player input, I'm going to go to the UI and remove the on button press callback from the pause callbacks. Okay, now it should work. So I'm in the move order. I'm going to cancel and nothing happens. Then I'm going to press escape. This brings up the pause menu. Okay, so this works. Okay, now let's add a bit more polish to our move order. So I'm in the player order controller script. When we press the use key, so here we're checking if we are in the move order mode, then we execute the move order, then change the player's mode back to normal, then we destroy the move gizmos. So this could lead to some errors later on because in the execute move order method, we're using the positions of the gizmos. So I'm going to move the destruction of the gizmos inside the execute move order method. So I'm going to do it at the end because as I said here, we are using the move gizmos. We're using the position of each move gizmo. So it makes sense to destroy them in this method itself because if we destroy them before calling this method, we may run into problems. I'm going to add a method, deselect all, which will clear the list of selected indices. And I'm going to use it as soon as we execute the move order. So as soon as we execute the move order, we're going to deselect all the group members. And what we're going to do next is display a helper window as soon as we have some selected members. So in the update method, let's call a set order help box visible method. If we have some elements in the selected indices, we'll call set order help box visible on the UI manager. So we can shorten the syntax using UI manager.instance.set order help box visible, and we're going to set it to selected indices.count greater than 0. So let's define this method on the UI manager. So I'm going to click here, generate method. I'm going to control click on it. Let's set it to public, and we're going to need a reference to an order help box, and we're going to call it set active method. So let's go up here. So we are in the UI manager. Let's go up to the HUD header and let's add a reference to an order help box that we're going to create. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy one of these panels. So let's copy this buttons panel, Control D, and I'm going to move it. So perhaps let's have it right here. Let's change the anchor. So I'm going to change the anchor and select stretch. Let's rename it to order help box. I'm going to remove these buttons. I don't need them. Yeah, let's keep the text. So let's set the text to align left. Perhaps we can make it bigger. Okay, so the text will say 1 for hold, 2 for move, and 3 for falling. So this is a static text. So an improvement for this is to actually use the input binding in the input actions and use it instead of these numbers. But this will do for now. Let's make this panel a little smaller. So perhaps for the text, let's have it stretch. Let's increase the margins. So for the left and top margin, let's set them to 35, for example. Okay. And we can also make the panel smaller. I'm going to make it smaller like this. Okay. Perhaps we can bring it a bit closer so it's visible to the player. Okay, so let's go to UI manager and let's assign the order help box here. Yeah, one last thing we can do here is in the start method, I'm also going to hide the order help box. We need to move the order help box out of the pause menu because it will not be visible unless the pause menu is visible. So let's move it to the HUD. Okay, now let's do a test. So I have a group and no one is selected. So I'm going to select 2 and 3. So as soon as I select them, the order help box is displayed. So I can press 1 to give them the order to hold position and 2 to give them the order to move. Yeah, so perhaps we need also to deselect all the objects as soon as the hold order is issued. Let's also do it for the falling order. So whenever an order is issued, we should deselect all the members. So let's go to the player order controller script in the on order hold method. So as soon as we issue the hold position order, we should call deselect all. Let's do the same thing for the falling order. So on order fall in, as soon as we execute it, we should deselect all members. So I'm just going to fix one small thing that sometimes bothers me. Let's go to the UI manager. Sometimes when exiting the game, the cursor is still invisible. So let's go to the Unity methods. Let's add a callback to onApplicationQuit. Let's set the cursor visible to true, and let's set the cursor lock state to none. So this is only happening in the Unity editor, but sometimes it's annoying because the cursor is invisible. So this should fix it. If you like this video and the content on this channel, then you can head over to the Ko-fi page of the channel. For as little as $5 a month, you can keep this channel going strong and help me produce more content and deliver much more value to you guys. So form the phalanx, defend the line, and thank you so much for your support.